Hi, I'm Stephanie Orell. Have you ever, as a child or as a growing adolescent, played the violin, did ballet, were on a sports team, played lacrosse, painted, I don't know what else, played the flute, did any kind of hobby that as you grew into your college life and then ensuing adult life, you couldn't accommodate anymore, that you really, really miss, or that gave you such a sense of peace, accomplishment, challenge, and that sense is something that is definitely lost in your adult life. If you have had this experience, I have, I hope that you'll find something worthwhile to you in this video. As I was growing up, I danced ballet. Ballet was a source of structure for me. It was a form of expression. It is what got me interested in speaking French because I was little and wanted to know what all the moves meant. It allowed me the opportunity to be on stage, to experience stage fright, to work under pressure. It was such a form of expression for me. As I moved though into my adolescence, my body changed. And while I continued to dance, I was not the petite ballerina that one would expect to see on a professional stage. And at about 16, my mom had a conversation with me and said, you're probably not going to be a prima ballerina. And since I very much enjoy moving towards the top of whatever I'm doing in my life, she thought that I would be dissatisfied with having ballet as a hobby. I had very good academic skills. She encouraged me to develop those academic skills and decide what to do with ballet, although she let it be my choice. I was pretty annoyed by all of this and really wanted to continue ballet in a serious way, but it did not afford me the time to develop my skills as an academic. Clearly, I am an academic, so we know which way that path went. But it was not an easy path, and there were things that I had to think about in the trajectory of my adult life, even getting creative about how to access the things that I loved about ballet without being a ballerina. I did not have an experience of really grieving ballet, but I did feel sad for a very long time about not having the things that ballet gave me, which I'll go back to. In that experience though, there was a pretty large stretch of time where I did not want to watch anybody dancing on stage. And I have to say, I still sometimes get a pang in my heart when I see dance companies because it was just not the direction in which my life developed. I do still dance. I dance as a ballroom dancer. At one point I was competitive, and as an adult sometimes I compete. It's not the same, and it's hard still for my psyche because I don't have the time to be at a level that I would like to be because I've committed to an academic life. Now, there maybe could be a better balance, but the choices that I'm making are choices that are good for me. What underlies those choices though is some real deep self-examination about what I got out of dance and trying to find those things now in these other ways that I express myself in my life. And all of these changes and decisions we make about where we're going to put effort in our adult lives that are different from what we experienced as children, especially when it's related to hobbies like this, or hobbies is actually probably too diminished of a word because we commit ourselves and our bodies to these practices. And some people, I'm sure some of you, it's not really a choice about what you love, but that you were sort of forced out of doing whatever that thing was. So if you were an athlete, for example, and had an injury where you could no longer engage in that sport, whatever sport it was, and could have been dance. I did not have an injury, but I do have friends that have experienced injuries and then they can't do that particular sport anymore. There's a loss involved. So there's a place for grieving that lost thing. My experience was more about examining what I got and then trying to find in my current life places where I could get that same stimulus. So part of the examination would be thinking, what did this practice give me in terms of my spiritual life? What did this practice give me in terms of my emotional or psychological life? What did this practice give me in terms of my intellectual life? What did this practice give me in terms of discipline or artistry? What did this practice give me in terms of forms of expression? And really analyzing that and seeing where can I transition to involving myself in activities that have the resonance, or the echo of that particular hobby. I'll walk you just a little bit through the aspects of my ballet life that I've recreated in my adult life in different forms. And the first I would hone in on is that I was 7 and I did not like not knowing the names of the movements in ballet, and told my mom I wanted French lessons. And I really wanted to understand the words that were being used to teach me. And I started studying French. I got very into French in high school, and I ended up getting a degree in French, actually 2, one in French as the language and one in comparative literature with French as one of my languages. I'm currently studying to get the fluency certificate in French. I work in France and everything French is really a part of my heart, and that started in ballet. So the experience of that hobby was actually a root that grew into a passion that was related but unrelated to the hobby itself in some ways. Interestingly enough, I really, really like being on stage. Really. It gives me lots of nerves, and I'm not that into people looking at my body, to be honest. It's a hard thing to do in ballroom, especially in the process of aging, and especially in our culture where sexuality is such a commodified in so many ways. And that's a challenge, to grow into that and to grow into new senses of self. But I am a teacher, and I do stand in front of people and talk. And I'm on a YouTube station now. So there are some forms of energy that I receive from the idea of performance that I get from my job as a teacher. I really enjoy talking in front of people. I never ever had a problem with public speaking at all. And I think that that's something that I loved about dancing and recitals, because I can do that in front of people. Now I do it in different ways, so it's not ballet, but it takes its own form. The technique of dance, I really always enjoyed the precision of movement and how the precision of movement transferred to clear thinking for me, because I am not a clear thinker. But when my body gets very centered, then I can think clearly. As an adult, I really relish forms of exercise, like before a workout, where I'm doing precise movements that really get me physiologically and mentally focused. It is such a profound need that I have. And that was a need that I recognized that came out of ballet, that it's really important that I take into my adult life. And I do that in the gym. I do that sometimes also in my house on YouTube videos that are dance techniques, but I do by myself, because I went to one adult ballet class in New York, and I just will never do that again, because the adult ballet dancers in New York are actually prima ballerinas. So that's a little too beyond my tolerance of intimidation factor. All of that to say, it's really, I think, worth your time to examine what you did as a kid that you loved, that you would do for free, and look at what that particular thing gave you that you can uncover in your adult life. I stopped for a second because not just adult, right? It's our growing life, our growing into adulthood, so to speak. Some of that may entail moments of nostalgia, moments of grieving, moments of the recognition of reality that time passes and we don't have what we had before at any given moment. and might not have something later. I often wonder, how long will my body be able to withstand the pressure that I put under it in terms of working out? At some point there may be a loss. There was a loss with ballet. I'm sure you guys have experienced some losses in relationship to what your bodies could do at one point, or what skill or talent you had at one point that you're not utilizing or you're not as good at now. But taking some time to reflect on what aspects of your life that talent touched and where you can plant the seeds of that into other current aspects of your life is really a worthwhile exercise. Thanks.